people that have been to our shows, I feel like they really can see everything come together in terms of the storytelling, the garment, the production. But it just didn't make financial sense. And I think that's just where the business part comes in, where it's like, it's so expensive to do.
Today, we're joined by Akua Shabaka, co-founder and creative director of House of Aama, a fashion label renowned for its storytelling through design, weaving together historical research, ancestral memory, and cultural narratives to create garments that are both deeply rooted and forward-looking. Beyond all the titles, Akua is just an incredible force, radiant, wildly imaginative, and grounded in purpose. Welcome to the show.
Hi, happy to be here.
I'm so happy to see you.
Yeah.
Are you wearing anything House of Aama today?
Yes, I'm happy I decided to. I feel like as founders, sometimes you're just like, I'm just throwing whatever on.
Yeah.
But I'm wearing our classic men's button down.
I love it.
Yes, and it's really been my go-to on just a quick moment. And I found myself wearing a lot of like men's button down shirts, and I was like, I need to make my own.
I love it.
So here we are.
Perfect. And the skirt too?
No, this is a fellow designer, Jason Wu skirt.
Oh, okay.
That I found. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so let's jump in. House of Aama is obviously celebrated for weaving folklore and historical research into your clothing and designs. Can you tell me a little bit more about that process?
Yeah, I would say that at the root of House of Aama's work is exploring archives and historical narratives. I think growing up, it was something normal in the house to talk about family story, to be celebrating of cultural identity. And so I think naturally that became a part of my creative expression, a part of me and my mother's creative expression. And so at the root of House of Aama is that. And it's a continual journey for my mother and I of exploring who we are as people, as Black people, and just what that means for us.
Yeah. And on a practical level, what does that look like?
I think on a practical level, what it looks like is actually literally sitting down, looking at the archive, thinking about, okay, what do I want to focus on? So whether that's looking at Black resort communities, or I'm thinking about my mother's time in the South growing up on a farm, or, you know, the nuances that she experienced, and then thinking about, okay, what were the people wearing? What was the environment? What were some of the references or sayings that I could incorporate into text or embroidery? And so it all weaves its way, whether it's texture, textile, design, just really trying to figure out how to world build with clothing and visual storytelling.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is imaginative.
Yeah.
So you're literally going to the archives, going to the historical records, sort of mining inspiration, and then seeing what would that have looked like? What can we create? Yeah,
exactly. And I feel like for us, like we are storytellers. Like we really consider ourselves like folklorists, really looking at people like Zora Neale Hurston, and yeah, it's really a creative process that has now become a business.
Right. I love that. I think those are the best ones. Right? Can you tell us about well, you kind of mentioned the beaches, but a specific piece of folklore or historical moment that you are proud that you sort of incorporated in your designs? Or a memorable one?
I would say there's two, but I think one, I would say the Black Resort was one that we became known for when we got into, like, as people know us as our brand today, and we began showing during Fashion Week. We did a collection called Saltwater.
I love that name, by the way. It's just it's so evocative. I just think it's perfect.
It paved a way for us to continue to design in that world, and we were really looking at the connection to water, the deities that are connected to water, and also how Black people created their own insular environments, and looking at these Black resort towns and just really seeing how all of those threads could weave together. And so that is and continues to be something that we focus on a lot. And then as we travel to the diaspora and we look at diaspora stories connecting back to Americana, we looked at Anansi the Spider, which is a West African folklore that traveled to the Caribbean and to the US. And that collection that we did was really special to me because it made me think about my own family's migration patterns. And
tell me about your own family and background, and then we'll circle back.
So my mother's family, and just I would say our culture, is from the South, Southern folks. They're from Louisiana and South Carolina. And my father's heritage is from Cuba and Jamaica, and they made their way from there to the US into Los Angeles. And so that was prevalent in my home, just understanding those patterns and understanding those references. That's a true diaspora baby. Exactly.
And so, and then were you born in LA?
Yeah, I was born here and raised here.
And you said your dad came from the Caribbean to LA.
So he was born here. My grandmother, the story is that she was born there and then came here as a kid. And, you know, with the Caribbean story, there's a lot of stories. But they were much older. So it's kind of like certain things have been lost in a way. We're talking the early 1900s.
So I have a similar background. So my dad is Black American from Kentucky, and my mom is Guyanese.
Yes, I think.
So but that would have been unusual to come to Los Angeles, no?
Yeah, the story is that it was like Cuba and then Florida, Texas, and then the U.S. Yes.
Wow. Yeah. And Louisiana, I feel like, is just so rich with like mythology and culture, and it's really an amazing place to mine.
It is. It's such an amazing place to mine, and I think it has such a root to the connection of the diaspora. There's so much. I mean, when you're looking at Louisiana culture, you have to look at Senegambian culture, you have to look at Haitian culture, you have to look at Creole French culture. So it really becomes this gumbo pot, so to speak.
And it all shows up in your designs, which is so cool. But you were talking about Saltwater, the collection. So what did you know about this story about Black beaches, and did you kind of know about that, or did you do research?
I feel like I knew about it loosely. I did understand about like Martha's Vineyard. The discovery of Bruce Beach, I think, was the most fascinating, being from California, from Los Angeles. I was really, something was called to me, and that's usually how it works, about just connecting with water and connecting with like the water spirit. And through that, it just opened me up to this research about people creating these communities and the relationships and that we had to it, and how we would go there for healing, or we would go there for safety by building these communities. And so it just really became a domino effect as we were designing, of just more information coming out and then reading and all of that.
And what does the collection look like? Like, what does it feel like? What is...
that collection was really exciting for me because we explored textile for the first time. We felt like we wanted our storytelling to exist not only through like found fabrics that we could find in Los Angeles, but also developing our own artwork and artisanal aspects to the design. And so we were creating our own prints. We did this like tattoo nautical print. We did a lot of prints in that collection. We did a stripe like cabana print. We did a lot of swim. We worked with like vintage beads. There was also a large nautical element to the collection, and we were looking at also the history of Black sailors. And we created our sailor jacket set that we did for men, and that the sailor neckline and nautical neckline has now existed into other worlds in our collection. But I would say that was a very distinct decision and piece that we included in the collection. It was just a nice, I feel, well-rounded collection. It had like cocktail attire, it had resort attire. It was fun.
That's amazing. And when you say you created your own designs, like artwork, is that you guys?
Yeah, we created all of our artwork in-house.
Wow. So you can draw?
I could draw a little bit, and I can also give great instruction. I could give, like, at this point, I might as well be drawing it because I'm not the most technical, but I have, like, my references, the colorways, like, the initial idea of what I want.
Right.
And then, like, I'll work with our designers and, like, really map out, okay, this is, like, the shape that I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are those in-house designers, or
Yeah.
do you kind of, and how do you find that talent?
It's kind of been nice to just work with like young designers who are ready to enter into the industry. I think when you're able to work with small businesses, you can get so much just on ground experience, and then you can kind of go off from there and like find your own path. And so I've just been blessed to work with people that really were excited to like help us storytell.
Yeah, that's amazing. And are these freelancers or okay? Yeah, very cool. Thinking about historical archives and research, does this kind of current political moment make you kind of rethink or kind of double down about how important this is?
I think if anything, it's really focusing on how important it is. I think also understanding now that you really have to focus on oral history. You really have to preserve history. I think when we're in times where history books are changing, they're pulling things out of museums, it's like, okay, who's going to be the keeper of these narratives? And is it important to us? And so now I do think that there is this energy of preservation, I think, happening outside of like the typical educational system or the typical spaces that maybe people felt like they could find the information. And so I am curious to see how that will exist and drive us into more of our own like agency in this space.
Totally.
Yeah.
That makes me think of a follow-up about Bruce's Beach.
Yeah.
You saw obviously the whole repatriation and all of that. Did you have thoughts about that? Were you in connection with their family at all?
We were really trying to like figure that out and connect, because at the time that we released the collection, it was like that everything was happening in real time.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, this is so synchronized that we didn't plan this. We just happened to be, I guess, on the same wavelength. But no, we weren't able to officially connect. There was like some bridges, but we kind of kept up with the story. I knew people that were working in that realm. But yeah, and I think it's a fascinating story. I think it's also fascinating how much responsibility it is. So it's like, it's one thing to make the initiative and make it work.
Right.
But then after, what happens?
Yeah.
Do we have the infrastructure? No.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll hear about it someday.
Yeah.
But it's interesting thinking about especially for me, like in this current moment, like thinking about these spaces of protection and, you know, all this like rich beach culture, and then that wealth, right? Like the loss, and they're lucky in a way that they got it back, but there's still something really lost there. And I think for Black communities across the US, there is this, you know, you have to kind of reckon with this loss of real wealth, which could be kind of overwhelming. I mean, we keep going, we're fine. But there is something pretty like dark about it all.
Yeah, and it's okay for us to be honest about that.
Yeah.
I think it's important. I think as a business owner, I've had my own moments of being like, wow, I'm not a trust fund kid.
Right.
I don't have, you know, secure capital to just fund whatever I want to do. And I think about historically, like how people have been positioned for generations to then be able to create wealth, you know, and then when we're talking about trying to create wealth, we do have to think about those limitations.
Totally.
And yes, we can move forward, but I think it's okay to be honest. And I think when we get into the world and we see wealth and we're in these spaces with people side by side that even look like us, that have been able to manage that maybe from other countries, you see the limitations of what the Black American or diaspora experience has created.
Yeah. Okay. I want to kind of go back. So take us back to high school, teenage you. When you started House of Aama, what were you like? What was inspiring you? What made you want to make this into a business?
At the time, like when I started Amma 15, we started with an Etsy shop, but just to give context, at the time, the kids, all of us, there was so many creative things going on. People were starting businesses. We were doing open mics. I feel like we were very active. I just remember there being a lot of things to do creatively. Instagram was taking off for the first time. This was like also at the heart of Tumblr. And so I just like to paint that picture, especially in LA, because there was a driving energy of us doing our own thing. And it did, I feel like I was around people that were creative, and it pushed me to want to try like my own expression. Yeah.
And how did that manifest in the beginning?
In middle school, I was starting to just try to figure out design and my own expression and like dressing interesting. And my mom would help me like do things with garments or upcycle garments. And so when I got into high school, I was starting to like post it on social media, and people were interested. They wanted to buy. So I was like making things for people, and people were buying them. And I was like, I think we could make an Etsy shop. And so we made an Etsy shop, and I was upcycling vintage clothes. I also was selling vintage, like reselling vintage. And I was doing that for a while. And then we were like, let's start our own, like, let's create our own collection. And so that was really the beginning of us getting into design.
When did you kind of join forces with your mom?
Since the beginning. I think in the beginning it was more so, okay, this is my thing and you're helping. But then I feel like by the time I was in later high school, it started to feel like, no, like we're doing this together. Like this is a 50-50.
So tell me about that. I mean, I feel like not every teenager wants to start a business with their mom. Like what was your mindset then? Or what was it, just a natural?
I think it was really natural. I mean, we were really close. You know, and she was already helping me and pushing me, and my mom has always pushed me to enjoy my creative pursuits.
I love that.
And so it just felt natural to do it with her. It was almost like, who else would I do this with? I trust her.
Right.
Yeah.
And she herself has such a great aesthetic and style, and that's really cool. And so what happened next? How does House of Aama sort of develop?
So after high school, I decided to go to New York. I got into Parsons, the New School of Design. And I was really excited to be in New York. And we were trying to figure out, we were like, are we going to keep the brand? What are we going to do? And we decided to keep the brand. And we decided to start thinking about our strong suits, which was storytelling. And we also felt like we wanted to rehash into the narrative of Black Americana and looking at ourselves from our lens and then out. And I think before, when we were starting to design our own collections, we were looking at more so like the West African expression. We were using like wax prints and things like that. And we started to feel like, one, that market was a bit crowded, and we had a lot more to say in terms of still talking about it, but from the perspective of us being here. And so we really decided to do that, and we came out with our heritage collection, Bloodroot. And that collection was about my mom's maternal lineage out of Louisiana, and this understanding of conjurers and Southern women and bluesmen. And so that was our, I feel, our origin story.
That sounds so rich. Well, first, I feel like you still have that in your brand ethos, right? Like, it's so distinct, and I think doubling down on that storytelling was so smart, because it just has more depth than so many other, young brands. So tell me, you said, what was the name of the collection?
Bloodroot.
Bloodroot. Tell me more about that. That sounds subversive. Give me more.
So Bloodroot is an old-time conjurer's herb.
Okay.
It's a root. And it can come like in a malt liquor. And the story is that my mom used to get that from her grandma, like they used to drink it. And when we were really exploring like Southern narratives, hoodoo narratives. My mom was like, I was getting this from my grandmother. We researched it, and it was like a conjurer's herb, and then we were like, oh, we have a long time history of conjure women in the family, Southern conjure women. So it just all came together, and that's how these collections work. It's like a little impulse, and then we like things come about over time.
And what are they conjuring?
I mean, you know, in hoodoo culture, which is an African American system that exists here on these shores, that has an interconnection of Christianity, West African traditional religions, working native religions to native practices. And so it's really one of the first beginning traditions that existed here, and it's working with the land, it's working with magic in a sense, healing in a sense, and I would say that most African Americans have some sort of hoodoo practice in their family.
And so you make this collection very inspired by hoodoo, and conjuring women. But I'm curious, what does that really mean?
When we're talking about like being inspired by hoodoo, it's more so thinking about how that has existed here, and that was a part of our existence here, whether it is within the church, whether that was people on the farmland. We look at it as hoodoo is the relationship that we had to the natural environment, to our idea of spirituality, our idea of how we were here. And so for us, it was looking at that in relation to that is a part of Americana.
And also our connection back.
Exactly.
That is so rich. I feel like it's like you're doing such great work connecting these dots, right? Like sometimes I don't really have this sense, but I know that sometimes people talk about the imaginary or not having a sense of their history back and back and back, which is not something I actually endorse. But I love that you have taken the work and made it really glamorous of kind of connecting these dots, because we actually do know where we're from.
And I think, you know, sometimes it can feel overwhelming, I think, to people to not. I think sometimes we're looking for an exact answer. But I think that what makes the diaspora experience so unique is that there's multiple answers to this question. And maybe the focus isn't one thing. Maybe it's understanding all of the elements that make you who you are. And I think that that's just something that is so uniquely about us as a people, and we have to be proud of it. And maybe people won't understand, but it's okay.
No, I love that so much. And when you do start to connect these dots, you see them very clearly, right? Like Angola to Brazil to Louisiana. Like to me, when I see these, I'm just like, oh, but this makes so much sense.
Me too. I'm like, this is so interconnected. Like I'm doing this over here, but then I go somewhere else and I'm seeing it.
Right. And even if you think about like some of because I've traveled in Brazil, and you know, they like a lot of the slaves, they came from Angola, and they maintained so many of these practices. Like you know, they have their candomblé, like which is another kind of religious derivative, but you see it manifest like taking on these Catholic icons and like making it theirs. So similar to like Haiti. So
exactly, and similar to Cuba with Santeria. It's I think it's fascinating. I think it's a beautiful example of how we've been able to be resilient 100%. And retain. And that's why, and I think that it's clear in the diaspora in certain ways, right? Because we have these terms and we have like these religions in a sense that have been developed. But that's why I try to emphasize hoodoo, because hoodoo is what African American people were able to develop as well.
This is so important. I feel like this is like, House of Aama. Like I'm so down. Yes. I feel like it's just so important to talk about all of this. Okay. So you go to Parsons. Tell me about your experience in New York. Parsons, was that helpful? Do you think other designers should go to fashion school? What do you think?
I think that, I definitely feel like New York as a city helped me tremendously. I mean, I feel like I built what I built there in so many ways. I was there for 7 years, and the city just pushes you in so many ways to become the person that you want to be. And I think that I would encourage people to go to design school if they have a plan or curiosity. I think that I went to school for design business, and I decided on that because I had a brand, and I was like, I want to see what's going on with that.
Yeah.
But I also think it's good to get technical skills too. I just think it's important to assess what is best for you. I feel like sometimes I sit back and I'm like, I could have went to school for finance and had my brand, like, because I'm thinking about the skill that is so important now.
Yes.
But I think some of my favorite early classes were just all of the studio classes, like getting my hands in different mediums, understanding how to work with a lot of different tools.
Yeah.
So that I can, as a founder and as someone trying to teach other people, I know the language.
Right. Some of those practical classes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And did you pick up finance knowledge there or kind of on the way?
A little bit. I mean, we did have some business, like we had business classes.
Yeah.
I think that if in hindsight and just like being transparent, I was so focused on building what I was doing just outside. I think I would have, in hindsight, used my brand as a case study in the classes.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting point. It was like we had dropped the Bloodroot collection, and then after that, it was like we took like a little break.
Okay.
And so I wasn't applying it in that way. So it's just like things I know now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And did you spend the 7 years in New York working on the brand?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I spent the 7 in many ways. Like the brand always existed, and then we would do small little things.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until the pandemic and then when we got the CFDA that we that it was like full time, because I was still a student for like 4 of those years.
Yeah.
And then I was now in the job market, and then the pandemic hit, and it was like, okay, well, I have this, so let me just focus on it.
And tell listeners what the CFDA is, and tell me about that experience, because obviously that is enviable. Yeah.
Yeah. The CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund is the American like design award that people receive here. I'm probably butchering the full description, but
I know. I think it's like Council Foundation.
Yes, the Council Foundation.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, it's like the LVMH one.
Yeah, but it's like the
highest one. It's the prestigious one. It follows you wherever you go. And in 2021, we were one of the grant recipients and winners and finalists. And that year, some years they've done only one person receives. The year that we were a part, it was a 10 designer class. So we all won. And it was a beautiful class, some amazing designers. I'm happy that I was a part of that class. Yeah. And yeah, we got that.
And what do they give you?
You get grant money, but you also are now a part of, like it's the award that you're getting, right? And so now I can always say like I was a winner of the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund.
Yeah.
And I think it puts you in a group of other designers that receive that award, and I think it does help with moving forward in the industry. I mean, after that we entered wholesale for the first time. And so a lot of things happened after that.
So tell me about that. So getting into, because you're in great retailers, like tell me a little bit about House of Aama and retailers.
Through the years, House of Aama has been in Saks, Nordstrom's, Shop Bob, Moto Operandi, Matches Fashion. Yeah, we've been in all of these stores.
But how do you get there? How for other younger designers, how do you get in?
Okay, I think how do you get in? I think it's important to do a full collection.
Yeah.
Not because I think you should, but because I think you need enough to show.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to start building those relationships early on. Start finding out who the buyers are.
Yeah.
And just trying to connect with them, show them your pieces. So if you're not going to do a full collection, if that's not the time, I think what is important is to start to show your designs. And then start to create a plan of how you're going to back it with some sort of marketing and get it on people. I'm just being straight about it.
Yeah.
Because there is a system, I think, of how you get into a store.
It seems like it. Do you think that CFDA was a catalyst for that, or had you been kind of mining those relationships before?
During the pandemic, like before the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund, we had started to get approached by buyers. We had did something like a partnership with Shopbop. That was our first time just even understanding wholesale and what it meant to produce and then ship something. Because before that, we were making everything out of the living room and we were just made to order. So we had no model of that or understanding of all of that. And the wholesale, that was our first introduction. But then we started to get just different like meetings or outreach. It was a lot going on at that time. I think just in general for Black designers. And then by the time we got CFDA, the advice that I was giving earlier, I had began to start to try to get these meetings.
Right.
Just start to just become more personable with people in the industry. Because before that, I felt like we were more just on the outside. Like, we just had a cult following. We were doing our own thing. I really didn't understand the fashion industry or business in that way.
Yeah. And it is hard to break in.
Yeah.
That's the...
it is hard to break in. I mean, I know other fellow designers that are trying to figure it out. And it's hard to give a direct answer to it.
Right.
Yeah.
What about New York Fashion Week?
Yeah. We showed consecutively for 4 years. This past February was the first time we decided not to show. And that was a big deal because for us, the show has always been a way to tie everything together.
Yeah.
People that have been to our shows, I feel like they really can see everything come together in terms of the storytelling, the garment, the production. But it just didn't make financial sense. And I think that's just where the business part comes in.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's so expensive to do. Yeah. So we're just trying to figure out ways to create those experiences outside of just the show model.
Yeah.
I think we do still want to show, but it's just, you have to be cautious,
And you did it for 4 years. Was it worth it?
I think for us, it was worth it because it was a funnel to our wholesale. So like when we got into wholesale in 2021, we took on a lot of buyers and it was kind of unheard of like how we were able to do all of that. But what happens and what I was under this understanding was that when you show is when the buyers come. So then that's when they place the order. So it was attached.
Right.
I think designers are trying to break out of that because again, it's like if I'm showing, then I've spent all this money.
Right.
And then now the buyers are coming. Maybe they're not going to put in big orders. So then do I get a return on my investment?
Yeah.
So, we're all trying to figure it out, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a reminder that the business side of fashion is complex.
It's complex.
What has been, maybe this is it, but what has been kind of the biggest challenge you've had?
I mean, I think the ultimate thing is always capital. The continual capital to fund. It's like you might get money coming in, but then if it has to go out, but you have a new order coming in, you have to then fund that order, but then you don't have like the capital to do it. So I think that's like the problem in the industry is that you need a lot more starting capital to fund the things to then make the thing happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you ever take any outside capital? Are you guys self-funding? How did you?
Yeah, we're self-funding it all, which has been really remarkable. And I I really say props to my mom for being like the prime investor. But we're self-funded. We are starting to figure out what that could look like.
Yeah.
We are interested in potentially having some sort of funding if it makes sense and it could be still, with us owning majority of our company.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a good time to mention because this show is about funding your creative life and being honest about it.
Yeah.
Your mom is an attorney.
Yeah.
And she has kept this job during the building of House of Amma.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes it's good to just for people to hear that, you know? It's like, sometimes it's not, with these creative ventures, everything is not a straight line.
It's not a straight line.
Yeah.
And you have to figure out a way to fund what you're doing. And if you don't have outside capital, how are you going to do that?
How are you going to do it? Yeah.
So, and it's been interesting because like for our business, it is very time consuming. It's a business now and it takes a lot of time. And so there has been many moments where my mom has not really been doing law, like in the intermix of everything. Yeah. But then we've realized too, it didn't make sense to fully let it go because creating that outside capital is important and we rely on it. And so, it's an interesting thing, but people should know. You have to figure that out.
You do.
Yeah.
You do. Okay, let's turn to some practical advice. What essential tools or resources would you recommend for aspiring fashion designers aiming to break into the industry?
I think it's two things. I think one, if you're creative, you should be creating and building whatever you're building, like whether you're making garments or you are starting maybe like a beginner label or something. And I don't mean doing it in competition or on a grand scale, but I just think showing proof of concept is important. And I think if you would have asked me even a year ago, I'd be like, don't even start a brand, just like do something else and then find your way to it. But I do think that is really important. When I think about even the people that I bring on our team or freelancers or interns or whatever, it's like, it is nice to see what you've done.
Right.
Just even at your home. I think the second part of that advice would be, I think it's great to intern with upcoming brands. I think it's the only way that you can really get a lot of hands-on experience.
Yeah.
You can be a part of a lot of different things and you can take that experience and take that part of your resume and move that into maybe like your next official job, or maybe you can use that to then work at the company that you would love to. But I think working with emerging brands, especially emerging brands where there is some growth, I think it's really valuable to someone trying to be up and coming.
You would say a year ago not to start a brand. Why not?
Well, I think that like from a practical sense, I would, the tone I would have is, how are you going to start it?
Right.
Like I'm thinking about it more so like, people say they want to have a brand. This is a business.
Yeah.
You need money. You need, the production infrastructure. Like, who are you going to sell this to? Like, there's so many things to think about.
Yes.
Outside of just creating.
Yeah.
So that would be my tone. But I think that that's a given. I think that for me now, it's like these, like I spoke at FITM recently and I just told them, I was like, it's good to intern with like companies like ours.
Yeah.
Because you really see what's going on.
Right.
You have really hands-on knowledge.
Yeah.
And sometimes I hear from, I went to design school, so I know like you'll intern for a big company and you may not be doing anything really,
Yeah.
You may not see anything in the industry.
So maybe one essential tool is like try to get in intern or get mentored by a smallish brand.
Yeah.
And really try to learn as much as you can there.
Yeah. That would be just like my real advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems like smart advice.
Yeah.
And then I guess this is sort of similar. If you're someone starting out, what strategies would you have for building a compelling portfolio, just your own design work?
I feel like there's so much parts of the business. I think if we were talking about design, it would be either focusing on a design style. So like if I was to see someone's resume, I would know that they have a point of view.
Yeah.
And that I understand like where their references are being pulled from and their techniques. So that's one. I think that's what's appealing to me because I'm such a focused based designer. But then I also think that it could be really interesting to see someone's portfolio where they have a lot of different type of experience. And they know how to like make a dress, they know how to make a pant. And that's just on the design end. I think in terms of like someone that's more in like creative directing or marketing, it's more so how do you tell a full story.
Yeah.
You know, like, are you producing your own shoots? Are
Right.
you, you know, what is the relationships that you've been able to build with your other creatives? You know, what's your eye? Like, how can you do something with not much too?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. How are
Yeah.
you?
How resourceful are
How
you?
resourceful are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about marketing and social, which you
Yeah.
were very good at. What's your approach and what's your advice to others?
I mean, we've been on social media so long since the beginning, so it's, I think we kind of have a cheat code in some
Right.
ways, you know. But I think, I mean, when we first started to gain online traction, it was really through our visual storytelling. I still believe in having a strong visuals
Yeah.
and imagery. I think that they last long. And they go through different platforms, you know, like there's Instagram, there's Facebook, there's Pinterest. And so sometimes we can't only think about, okay, we're getting this posted out, but we also have to think about it kind of like archiving. How is this going to be like represented or remembered later too, when someone rediscovers it, or how you can use this for, you can repurpose and put this in your deck and different things. And so I feel like that's my approach. I also think trying to just build community through social is really important. And not just feeling like you're just selling something, but also people are stimulated by what they see and how they feel. And so them going to your brand page, it makes, if they feel something, they're more inclined to keep following and keep engaging in some way.
Yeah. For Instagram, your approach is like really like community building,
Yeah.
archival. Yeah. I mean, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And are you posting every day? Do you have a team, or how does it work?
Yeah, no, I have someone that I work with that's like been on our team for a few years now.
Okay.
And that's nice because I was doing it all myself.
Yeah.
And I needed to delegate that task of like launching it out to someone else. But I'm still really involved in what goes up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, that reminds me of something. What is your, I mean, I know every day is different, but what is like a day in your life look like? What is the...
Well, a day in my life now starts with me not looking at my phone right when I wake up.
Right.
Which I love. I think it's important for people to have some self-care.
Yes.
And then, yeah, it starts with some emails. I'd like to make a to-do list now. That's been really helpful for me to balance like all of the different pillars that I have to do. I may start my day at home. My mother is more so like more traditional. She'll wake up, she's going to the studio. Okay. And like she's like making her production rounds, like because everyone we work with is downtown in the fashion district.
Okay.
And so yeah, it's like kind of those different points. It's like understanding what's going on with production, having a design meeting, maybe I'm having like a social meeting, and then also taking time for myself to assess like what else is going on. Maybe there's a pull request coming from the studio. So it really is a lot of different things happening every day.
Every day. I love it. That's like the joy of creative life, right? Like it's like different. Okay. Reflecting on your journey so far, what are the 3 most important lessons you've learned about building a successful creative venture? Like your top 3.
I would say my top 3 would be having a voice and a perspective, and something that people could really see consistently. Yeah. And being really serious about that. I think 2, maybe taking time to focus on the business part. Really, you know, getting your ducks in order and assessing, you know, how are you doing financially? What's your supply chain looking like? Yeah. All of that. And then I think 3, finding joy in what you're doing. I think not just looking at it like a business, like step 2, but understanding what could be all the different ways that you can express through the business. And even if it's not always with the output that comes out with what you sell, it's still something that, you know, keeps you going too.
I love that.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you about press a little bit, because you've obviously gotten a lot.
Yeah.
What is your and what I've been impressed with, like the stories about you, is that they seem to understand your historical, they kind of get the brand then.
Yeah.
What's your approach to press? How have you gotten it? Do you have a publicist, etc.?
We've had different PR teams through the years. And we have also gotten a lot of stuff organically too. I mean, in the beginning, I was sending out like 200 emails to get the one response.
Yes.
I think that people are just so intrigued by the story, and then they like the visuals and they like the vibe, so they want to write about it. And I think we are at a good time where people are starting to understand like the cultural links. I think a lot of creative people are focusing on in some way their own identity or historical references. And so I think that we've been a good brand for that as well, in an authentic way. It kind of comes like, there's been periods of my life where I'm like, oh, I really want to focus on that. Right now, I'm like not as focused on getting all the press.
Right.
Just really amazing stories when they come, and just telling those stories too. Yeah. I'm really serious about telling the story and being clear about it. And then, they've been doing a good job. I've had some really good writers.
Yeah. I'm surprised. Like, I'm just like, oh, they kind of get the brand. But this is a good advice, which is that you really take ownership of the storytelling and then communicate it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And is there something that you're really excited about or obsessed with right now? Either piece of folklore, historical trend that you're like thinking of for your next project?
Yeah, I'm really with everything going on with the tariff situation.
Yes.
We had already started to think about what it would look like to have a full supply chain here in America.
Yeah.
And we have been working with someone specifically on the production of cotton here in the US with Black farmers. Yeah. And so that's going to be a part of my new collection in some way. And I'm just really excited about that because, I mean, this was something I just was feeling myself. And then when everything's now taking a hit, I'm like, we need to be thinking about what it does look like.
Right.
I don't think America has a full infrastructure, but I think for people who are aligning with the stories of this and from the context of really supporting the laborers here, we should be thinking about how we can have the industries here.
That feels so important, so timely, and also connected to our history. Right? Okay, last question. What parting advice would you offer to aspiring designers who are passionate about turning their creative visions into sustainable business? So like one kind of like your number one, this is my advice, go forth.
I think my number one advice at this point is, start finding mentors. Start finding mentors and get your hands dirty and work with these up and coming businesses. Yeah. Get your hands dirty.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. This was so fun.